Tuya Dharma Kala Sarge. Tam Akaro Dushram Tapaha. Tuye. In the fourth of the line. Dharmakala, the wife of Dharmaraj. Sarge, being born of. Nara Narayana, named Nara and Narayana. Rishi, sages. Bhutva, becoming. Atma Upashama, controlling the senses. Upetam, for achievement of. Akarot, undertook. Dushcharam, very strenuous. Tapa, penance. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. In the fourth incarnation, the Lord became Nara and Narayana, the twin sons of the wife of King Dharma. Thus he undertook severe and exemplary penances to control the senses. Purport: as King Rishabha advised his sons, tapasya, or voluntary acceptance of penance for realization of the transcendence, is the only duty of the human being. It was so done by the Lord Himself in an exemplary manner to teach us. The Lord is very kind to the forgotten souls. He therefore comes Himself and leaves behind necessary instructions, and also sends His good sons as representatives to call all the conditioned souls back to Godhead. Recently, within the memory of everyone, Lord Chaitanya also appeared to the same purpose, to show special favor to the fallen souls of this age of iron industry. The incarnation of Narayana is worshipped still at Badri Narayana on the range of the Himalayas. Tuye Dharma Kala Sarge Nara Narayana Rishi Budvat Mopashamo Petam Akarot Dustaram Tapaha. In the fourth incarnation, the Lord became Nara and Narayana, the twin sons of the wife of King Dharma. Thus he undertook severe and exemplary penances to control the senses. Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Sarasvatundeve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shnivadi Paskatyade Satarane. These two words, tapa, or penance or austerity, these were first uttered at the beginning of the creation. We find that Lord Brahma had woken up after his rest, approximately 4,300,000,000 years he was resting, and he woke up and everything was dark. So he was questioning, where am I? What's going on? And the only way he could figure it out, because he figured out he was on a lotus flower somewhere, so he decided to climb down the lotus flower and see where the lotus flower came from. And before he got down to the end of the lotus flower, he heard two words, two syllables from the Sparsha alphabet, tapa. And then he climbed back to the top of the lotus flower and sat down and meditated on tapa. Now, he had the advantage, he heard these two syllables from Narayan himself. Therefore, it wasn't just meditating on our version of tapa. He was actually meditating on the sound vibration coming from Krishna. Otherwise, you can try sitting there and meditating on tapa and see how far you get. Now, if we hear there's sound vibrations from the Supreme Personality of Godhead and we meditated on it, we might get the same result as Lord Brahma got. He was able to see the entire spiritual world. But here the significance of tapa, because after all, Brahma's penance was not that he was fasting. Of course, there was nothing to eat, because there was nothing in the universe. So he had no choice. But we don't find Lord Brahma falling off the lotus flower due to lack of eating, of hunger. We find Lord Brahma became all skin and bones and then fell off the lotus flower into the Garbhodaka ocean. And that was the end of the creation. His last words were, tapa, before he fell. But austerity, as we find in the Srimad Bhagavatam, is necessary to detach oneself from unrestricted sense gratification, or to gradually be able to fix the mind on Krishna and not be distracted from sense gratification. Now, Lord Brahma was exemplary because, first of all, there's no opportunity for sense gratification. There's nothing. At the same time, there was a lotus flower, so there was something. And there was a stem of the lotus flower. And I'm sure our Brahma was born with 4 heads. So he figured out, he has a choice. He could just sit there on the lotus flower, or he could go down the lotus flower. So he was intelligent enough to go down the lotus flower. And then Krishna, he wasn't going to allow Brahma to wind up on his chest. Instead, he allowed Brahma to hear his voice, which is non-different from Krishna, and therefore he meditated on that sound vibration. Now we ourselves, there's so many sound vibrations. None of them are probably coming from Krishna, for the most part, except the sound vibrations we hear in the simple succession. At the same time, we've been born into a situation where we're very much attracted to sense gratification. So does that mean we should just find some lotus flower, big lotus flower, climb on top of it, and listen to tapa until we pass away, which might be quite quickly? No, there has to be, the whole idea of austerity is to give us the opportunity to deepen our meditation on Krishna. Otherwise, such austerity is a waste of time. As it says in the Bhagavad Gita, those who, in the 16th chapter, might be the 16th or 17th. Those who practice austerities. sure it must be the 17th. The mode of ignorance, austerity in the mode of ignorance. Muda grihenatmano yat pridaya kriyate tapa parasyo sa vinartam va tamasam udaritam. Penance performed out of foolishness with self-torture or destroy or injure others is said to be in the mode of ignorance. There's something about to torture the self and the super soul within. Does anyone know where that says about torturing the self and the super self within? Oh, here it is. Ashastra vitam goram tapyante ye tapojana damba hankara samyukta kamaraga balanvitaha karshanyata shririrastam bhutagramam achetasa mam chaivanta shririrastam tanvidyasram nishchayan. Those who undertake severe austerities and penances not recommended in the scriptures, performing them out of pride and egoism, or impelled by lust and attachment, foolish and who torture the material elements of the body, as well as the supercell dwelling within, are to be known as demons, like Hiranyakashipu. So the idea of, well, this is terrible. These flowers have been painted, or something like that. And therefore, when you get on your dhoti or whatever, they paint your dhoti too. People think you're not very careful when you eat your food, your prasadam. So here is a balance between trying to control the senses by gradually giving up sense gratification and fixing the mind upon Krishna. The whole idea of tapasya, or restriction from sense gratification, is to engage the consciousness and the senses in Krishna's service. In other words, the more we engage in sense gratification, supposedly, because one can actually engage in sense gratification in one sense and have the mind completely fixed on Krishna. But on the other hand, until we come to the platform of being able to fix our mind completely on Krishna, sense gratification is generally a distraction from that. As we can see, when we sit down to eat prasadam, sometimes the last thing we think about is Krishna. Although this is an opportunity to make great spiritual advancement if we actually think about Krishna while we're eating. Therefore, it's advised that one chew the food and remember that the taste comes from Krishna. Honor prasadam. Because even if we eat prasadam and we're not fixing our mind upon Krishna, then the benefit is rather minimal. Because Krishna, we're trying to come to the platform of whatever we're doing, that we remember Krishna. The general formula is that we're in the consciousness that everything here belongs to Krishna. That there's nothing different from Krishna, not it just belongs to Krishna, but everything comes from Krishna. So everything is spiritual, and everyone is spiritual. Therefore, our duty is to utilize everything that within our realm of influence to utilize it in Krishna's service, under the direction of Krishna's authorities, as a service to Krishna through his authorities. And with the mood, we're doing it to please Krishna. Then we'll be able to think about Krishna. So when there's limited possibilities of sense gratification, there's no distraction. In other words, the more complicated our lives become, the more opportunities for distraction is, the more we're likely to forget, under our conditioned nature, that actually everything here is spiritual and everything is meant for Krishna's pleasure. When everything is very simple, and it's very easy to remember, without much attachment, that everything should be utilized for Krishna. If one goes about in the world collecting a lot of money, prestige, and so many other things, but why did one collect so much money? Why did one try to get so much power and influence? Why did one want to get material education, as Queen Kunti said, Janmaishvarya Shruti Shivir Edamanak Madak Puman Naivahat Devadatum Vai Twam Akinchana Gochara. That anyone who is anxious to get janma, nice material birth, nice material circumstances to live under, Aishvarya, wealth, because with wealth you can practically buy anything nowadays. Shruta, material education. With material education, real material education can teach one how to manipulate the material existence. Shribi, material influence. Janmaishwarya Shute Shibir Edamanak Madapkuman. So these are the things people accumulate life after life. They try to get. They're born into a circumstance sometimes which allows them to get these things. But why did one work so hard to get them? Generally one works hard to get them to enjoy them. And if we hear, after working so hard for so many lifetimes, and we've accumulated so many of these things, like wealth or opportunities for prestigious education nowadays, because nowadays material education is not even very valuable, but there's a prestige getting your PhD degree or going to an important college, so-called important college, although you're just learning ignorance. It's not really, even materially speaking, it's not real education. But there are those who have, for instance, as we find out, Chatura Vida Bhajante Mam Jana Sukritina Arjuna Artha Jignasya Artharati Gyani Charparatarchiva. Some people approach Krishna in order to get these things. To get free from distress by having nice material circumstances, getting material wealth so one can get all kinds of enjoyable paraphernalia. Of course, the enjoyable paraphernalia in the Vedic culture is nice milk. That's practically the most highest sense gratification in the Vedic culture, which we're probably not familiar with because we're far removed from the Vedic culture. So pure ghee, pure milk, pure cheese. Chanakya Pandit says, beg, borrow, steal, but get ghee. Because it was so, from the point of view of even consciousness or health or everything else, it bestows all kinds of benedictions upon those who can actually get pure ghee made from pure milk, from cows that are grass-fed, which are protected, which have a certain type of cow, which is unhomogenized, unpasteurized, which is coming directly from the cow, made into pure ghee. Then, in every respect, it increases one's consciousness and gives one complete satisfaction, materially speaking. So after that, then one may actually start becoming actually learned by becoming inquisitive. Is there something even beyond ghee and all the nice preparations you can make with ghee? Then one becomes aware of the fact that there's the heavenly planets where even the ghee is even better than here. All the milk products they have there, the actual Sarabi cows there, they're not just ordinary Brahmin cows, they're Sarabi cows. When Indra offended Krishna in the Govardhan Leela and offended the residents of Vrindavan, he just didn't bring a cow from India. He brought a cow from Brahmaloka, a Sarabi cow. So that's even more special ghee and milk products. After all, in the spiritual world, what does Krishna enjoy besides his relationship with the gopis? When the gopis want to prepare some food for Krishna, what do they make it from? Do they go to the store and buy some carton milk? No, they get it from a Sarabi cow, a spiritual cow. Even Mother Jasoda had special Sarabi cows to make special butter for Krishna, because she was afraid Krishna is going around stealing butter from everyone else. Maybe our cows aren't giving such good milk. Therefore, Krishna is not satisfied with the milk products that I'm giving him. So let me get some very special Sarabi cows and give them some very special grass to eat. So when Krishna eats this, when he drinks this milk, when he eats this ghee, these preparations made in ghee, he'll actually be satisfied. She didn't think, well, maybe we should try pizza or ice cream, or maybe he should become a vegan or whatever else. No, she realized that the topmost satisfaction comes from the Sarabi cows, because they give their food out of love to their calves. And therefore there's nothing higher than love in the spiritual world. And the milk given by the cows, there's nothing higher food than that. Give purely out of love. Then one becomes inquisitive, is how do we get to the heavenly planets and ultimately liberation? So that's real education. And Shri B, then if one is actually in the consciousness of Krishna consciousness, one actually becomes attractive. Not just by physical, external attraction, but by actually the higher consciousness, one becomes attractive. In any case, this is material existence, and if we're striving for these things, if this is what we're looking for, when we get them, then we want to enjoy them, at least in that lifetime. We're not about to renounce them. Why do we work so hard to get them? Such attachment, so very difficult to renounce. Therefore, someone like George Harrison was quite rare, or Ambarish Prabhu, that after getting an opportunity for so much enjoyment, they utilize it in Krishna's service, especially in Kali Yuga. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Stane stita shuti-gatam dhanuvang manobira." Don't try and give up what we have artificially, nor try to acquire more. Of course, what are we going to do in Kali Yuga? I mean, previously, maybe someone wanted to advance in a particular field, or maybe one wanted to give up something artificially. But now we have, in one sense, we're fortunate because we have little to give up. And there's little to acquire. Previously, people used to live in a household community. And the people actually in the household, the wife would cook nice prasadam. The husband would actually work in a decent occupation where he could actually generally, either he's a Brahmin, he'd do sacrifices in a clear atmosphere with pure paraphernalia. Simple. The water was clean, the air was clean. And if one was a farmer, then he'd work hard, but he had a body which was actually able to work hard. It was adjusted to it. And everything he grew was fresh. And he didn't have to grow unlimited amounts of it to go to the store to sell it so he can buy more and more land. There was no ambition to become a bigger and bigger farmer, get more and more land, hire people, etc., and then build a bigger and bigger house. No, people had a simple house, enough to live in, where they could sleep, they can cook. They may expand it to when they had children who would help them out with the farm, etc. But life was simple. And now everyone is dissatisfied with whatever they have. Either they want to give it up, they want to give up they thought they had married their soulmate, and they found out it wasn't their soulmate. It wasn't even a mate. What to speak of a soulmate? And they give it up, and they look for another soulmate, which they never find. Or they hanker, if I can only find my soulmate, then everything would be perfect. So people are just, either they're attached or they're reversed. Either way, they suffer. They're never satisfied. They're never satisfied, and it burns like fire. Definition of lust. Because they don't follow the Vedic culture, they're never satisfied, and it burns like fire. Whatever they're doing, whatever relationship they have. That's the whole existence. But in the Vedic culture, people could find the means by which they could actually they could be satisfied in their particular service. When Vishwamrita Muni came to take Lord Ramachandra and Lakshman in order to kill the demon who were disturbing his sacrifice, such as Marichi. When the king Dasarat saw Vishwamrita, he asked, "How is your attempts to liberation coming along?" And Prabhupada writes that people would be asked about things that were pertaining to their particular ashram or their particular varna. Not how you doing, typical thing. How are you? Prabhupada was about to leave his body, hadn't eaten for practically a year. People would come and ask him, "How are you?" What kind of question is that? Try not eating for a year, and then someone comes along and asks, "How are you?" Probably didn't, you're supposed to ask relevant questions to the spiritual master, something meaningful, something beneficial. To ask someone, it's a waste of time. They're just wasting Prabhupada's time. I'm fine. People in the hospital, tubes in every part of their body. Every part of their body is broken. Someone's asking, "How you doing?" "I'm feeling better today." So one is supposed to ask questions which are relevant to their particular situation. So whatever our situation is, we should be inquisitive, not how to increase it or get out of it, but how to properly utilize it. And therefore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, or Brahma said, "Stani stita prashutigatam tanuvang manobir." Rather than trying to figure out why am I unhappy like Vyasadeva, he was in the topmost Brahminical position, and he was dissatisfied. So Narada Muni told him, because Shutigatam Dhanuvang Manopira, because you study the Vedas, but you're not utilizing your intelligence, your mind, and your senses in Krishna's service, and therefore you're dissatisfied. So whatever our situation, whatever our position, if you utilize that in Krishna's service, not give it up or not hanker for some other position, that now I'm just a bhakta and everyone has me doing all the dirty work in the temple. If only I can become initiated, then I can actually have some status. I'm actually a real Prabhu now. I'm just not bhakta, I'm not a bhakta. Give up this devotion, become a Prabhu, a master. And then I'm just an ordinary Prabhu. Let me become a Brahmin. Now I'm in Brahman. But now there's so many Brahmins. There's no more prestige being a Brahmin. Let me become a temple commander, and everyone will salute me. Let me become something, the vice president. I'm almost there, waiting for the president to disappear. Now I'm a president, but there's so many other positions: regional secretary, zonal supervisor, GBC, guru, avatar, Sakchavesh avatar. We're getting there. So this upward mobility, we lost the point. It doesn't really matter what we're doing. We don't change. The soul is always the same. And whatever position we have, if we don't utilize it in Krishna's service, by hearing about Krishna and then engaging in his service with our body, mind, and words, then we're fallen. We're an illusion. I think someone asked me something about guru the other day. I forget what it was. The question was how you're supposed to think about when you're the guru. And I said, my response was, if you think you're a guru, you're in Maya. We don't become a guru, Shaktavesh, or a Shiksha, we don't become. We remain the eternal servant, the 1/10,000th the size of Tipper in size, soul, servant of our spiritual master. And if we think we become guru, then we're bewildered. It's not that someone says guru and you say, I'm not guru to your disciple. Your disciple should think you're guru. But if you think you're guru, then you're in Maya. What we can do is become an instrument for Krishna. So the point is that remaining in our position, and then as we make spiritual advancement, then generally speaking, we can gradually give up our eating, sleeping, etc., etc. But artificially trying to give it up without advancing Krishna consciousness is a waste of time. It's for the neophyte, it's on the Anishtita Bhajana Kriya, Utsahamayi, where we're puffed up, we think we're so advanced, and then we find out we're not so advanced because I'm going up and down, unsteady devotional service, like a yo-yo. You know what a yo-yo is? So then I figure out, well, what's the problem? It's because sometimes I eat too much and sometimes I eat too little. When I eat too little, then I want to eat too much the next day. Or I just eat too much for the happiness of eating too much. I think that's Vishaya Sangara, war against sense gratification. Yuddha Vikalpa, then I try to give up, I try to renounce what I'm attached to. So all the time we're so much concerned with whether I'm engaged in sense gratification or not, whether I'm renounced or not, but the tendency is to forget Krishna. But then gradually it dawns on someone that actually the problem is not that I haven't eaten enough or I haven't eaten too much. The real problem is I'm forgetting Krishna, and therefore I'm being entrapped by the material demands of my senses or by the demands that I renounce. And therefore the solution is to become conscious of Krishna. Chant my rounds better, we hear. Someone asks us a problem, I have this problem, and the devotee says, chant Hare Krishna. But they don't mean just chant Hare Krishna, they mean chant Hare Krishna without offense, so we can actually get the happiness that comes from associating with Krishna and his eternal associates. then we can give up sense gratification, which means eating too much or eating too little. In Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna tells Arjuna about how to deal with the body, he doesn't say, give up the sense gratification. He says, Nashnatas tu yogosti, na chai kantan manashnata, na chaiti swapna shilasya, jagato naivacharjana, yukta hara viharasya, yukta chesas karmasu, yukta swapna vodasya, yoga bhavati dukkha. The yogi does not eat too much or eat too little, sleep too much or sleep too little. One who is temperate in his habits of eating, sleeping, work, and recreation can mitigate the material pains by practice of the yoga system. So by the practice of the yoga system, one can actually raise one's consciousness so that one will not eat too much or eat too little, sleep too much or sleep too little. It'll all become natural because of the higher taste of being more and more conscious of Krishna. On the other hand, if one doesn't try to at least become a little detached from sense gratification in a regulated way, then one will simply be complacent. So we're not Dhruva Maharaj, we're going to eat kapita fruits every third day, and then the next month only eat leaves that fall from the tree every sixth day. We're not trying to get a kingdom greater than that of our great-grandfather. Besides that, probably the kingdom that our great-grandfather had wasn't worth getting anyhow. Dhruva Maharaj, his great-grandfather was Lord Brahma, so that kingdom he was interested in. A greater kingdom than that. So we don't have to go through such great austerities, nor can we do it. Try eating kapita fruit. Trying to find any kapita fruit around here. But then eat it every third day for a month and see what happens. When no one's looking, you'll be in the kitchen looking for the Maha sweets. But we should be temperate in our habits, and then gradually, by the advancement of Krishna consciousness, we can recognize that I can gradually give up my eating and sleeping and mating and defending. But we're doing that to absorb our minds more in Krishna, that's all. Not for the sake of, I'm fat and therefore I should fast a little bit more. That's maybe true. We may be fat or too skinny, we should eat a little bit more, eat a little bit less. But that may help us increase our health so that we can not be distracted by the body so much, so we can think of Krishna more. The whole idea is to think of Krishna more. So the tapasya is, as our Lord Brahma went through the tapasya, so that he could actually become more and more conscious of Krishna. Nanyan deha bhajam lo riloke kastang kaman arhate vid bhujanye tapo divyam putraka yena sadvam shudyat tasmai brahmasokyam tunantam. So what's quoted here from Maharaj Yashavde, Nanyam deha bhajam. We don't live just like a dog or a hog for sense gratification. Tapo divyam. We do divine austerity, not just regular austerity. We do those austerities which will help us think about Krishna more, absorb our minds more in Krishna. Then we can get divine austerity. By divine austerity, tapo divyam, putraka yena shudyat tasmai. Then our consciousness can become purified. And we can obtain pure Krishna consciousness, for which we experience transcendental happiness that goes on forever. Otherwise, people have tried to fast themselves into nirvana, and they've wound up dead, that's all. They didn't obtain nirvana, then all they did is get their next body, probably a very thin body. So divine austerity. For instance, part of the austerity is only to eat prasadam. That's an austerity. Only eat food offered to Krishna. Now for us, it may not seem like an austerity, but if someone is living on the outside and they're walking by the shop all the time, they don't like to cook. I remember when before I joined the movement, I became a vegetarian, But although I knew how to cook, I didn't have time. I was a student. I was doing so many other things. I had working as a yogi, actually doing in an art studio, doing yoga postures. So I didn't have time to cook. So I was only eating bananas and raisins. I was trying to figure out how to cook bananas. And this is in Buffalo during the winter. There's no ripe bananas in Buffalo. And when it's 20 degrees below zero, they don't grow bananas there. Anyhow, if you're in that situation, then you go out in the street and all the restaurants look like they're in heaven. They're coming from heaven, especially the vegetarian ones. So you get distracted. So, just to eat prasadam, for one who's a new devotee, who's accustomed to go in the restaurants or having his mother cook for him, whatever, it's an austerity. Or to give up things like, what bad habits we have is an austerity of eating and sleeping, when you can sleep whenever you want, wherever you want, whenever you want. It's an austerity to live in an ashram and people wake you up. So this is divine austerity. If the idea is that we're doing this so that we can actually come to the temple and absorb our minds in Krishna service and Krishna consciousness, then it becomes divine austerity. Not just to eat prasadam and think about all the nice preparations I could, if I left the temple, I can go to my favorite pizza place again and enjoy. As a matter of fact, when the devotees first joined the movement, when Prabhupada was in San Francisco, sometimes he'd pass by the donut place where they had coffee and donuts, and he'd see the devotees. When they saw Prabhupada passing by, they'd hide underneath the table so Prabhupada didn't see him. So Prabhupada knew that. Like in 26 Second Avenue, Prabhupada had a jar with glubdimins. So if you're thinking of blooping, leaving the temple, you go and take a glubdimin, and that usually would calm your mind down. So you'd stay a little longer. So that's divine austerity. Kept you in Krishna service, in Krishna consciousness. So that's what we have to see. What I'm doing, if we have a fast day, we shouldn't resent it. Why am I fasting? We should understand this is an opportunity so we can think about Krishna more. Not as to torture our body, torture our mind. And when we saw that in the beginning of the society, where there was, Prabhupada had mentioned we should have a half-day fast every appearance day of the acharyas or the avatars, and every other day we were fasting, half-day fast. That didn't work out very well, especially for the new devotees. And in Ekadasi, to have a full fast, devotees would think, oh, Ekadasi is coming, they curse Ekadasi. Oh my God, we got to fast again. This is torture. 2 days down in the month, we're being tortured. So then we had big feasts on Ekadasi. Big feasts of, nice, without grains, but nice prasadam on Ekadasi. So their minds would calm down. They could actually chant. We were chanting 25 rounds. They could chant 25 rounds and not curse Ekadasi. Or Janmashtami's coming up. My God. Krishna's going to torture us, another Janmashtami. No one has to take it in the proper attitude. Or else, first of all, the whole idea is to meditate on Krishna during that time, to increase our meditation somehow or another, increase our consciousness in Krishna, get some mercy coming from Krishna so we think about him more, not just to fast, and finally it's 12 o'clock, and we think, oh, thank God, I'm still alive after fasting the whole day, and now we can enjoy a big feast. No, we should actually, by the end of the day, if we're actually thinking about Krishna more, we should be honoring prasadam more, not just gorging ourselves on prasadam, because we almost starved to death after fasting for 24 hours practically. So we have, and the purport is we have to understand what austerity is, what divine austerity is, not just what people think of austerity. And although we may restrain our senses from the objects, but it's in order to, one who restrains his senses from the objects, but at the same time fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as this man of steady intelligence. Tani samani samyamya yukta sitamat praha vashehi yasendriyani tasya pragya pratishtita. One who restrains his senses from and organs of action, but his mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself, is called a pretended. On the other hand, one who engages his active, one who engages himself, one who engages his active organs in works of devotion without attachment is my far superior. And therefore, tani sarvani samyamya. One who restrains his senses and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence. So it's good to restrain the senses from the objects, but at the same time we should fix our consciousness upon Krishna. When we see that our senses are being drawn to the objects, we should take it as an alarm and then try to fix our consciousness upon Krishna. And by practice, we'll be able to do it with more expertise. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Maharaj, thank you so much, Maharaj. Can you explain a little bit about Ekadasi? Because our ISKCON is Ekadasi means feast. I see the Ekadasi, have always big prasadam.
On Ekadasi.
Yeah. So how is it possible to control to our tongue? Because the devotees make a huge feast. And another thing, Maharaj...
well, let's one thing at a time. And then ask someone to bring you a small portion of the Ekadasi preparations. If you're become too much disturbed when you see what the prasadam is during Ekadasi, then don't go and eat. Or ask someone to send you bring you a small plate. Some use of intelligence can be there. I don't think anyone forces you to eat, but if we can't control our senses and do what's necessary. It's like none of us, decide to test how much of a brahmachari is by living in the brahmacharini ashram for a couple of days. Because we know we're not going to make it. It's like Rajneesh, as I always say. He challenged. He thought he was such a fantastic brahmachari, such a paka brahmachari. He challenged any woman in India to have him fall down. So the most famous prostitute in India came and accepted the challenge, spent the night with Rajneesh. And then the next day he wrote an article for the newspapers in India, Liberation Through Sex. You know Rajneesh? Who was a brahmachari, actually. He was a brahmachari for a long time. Osa. And he became proud, thinking I'm such a great brahmachari, and challenged any woman in India to have him fall down. So the most famous prostitute came and challenged him. So he spent the night with her, and the next day he wrote an article. The title of the article is Liberation Through Sex. In other words, he didn't make it. So if we know we're not going to make it, then why put ourselves in a situation which is going to be difficult for us? Make an arrangement so it's not so difficult. You can't blame the nice prasadam. I fell down, I ate too much because of the prasadam. I fell down because I wanted to eat more than it was required. So make an arrangement so that you're not so attracted. Any other question?
Maharaj, the Jagannath Puri, they don't have any Ekadasi. Our ISKCON society and another Gauriya Math, another society, they attending for Ekadasi Brata.
So go live in Jagannath Puri.
No, this is not my question, but Maharaj.
No, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is told in the to Sanatana Goswami that we should follow Ekadasi. It's in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. He because it's an opportunity to learn a little austerity. Otherwise, where is our austerity? Where are we going to practice it? And it's done in a very auspicious day called Ekadasi. So that's the advice of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to follow Ekadasi. And it said, at least in our scriptures, that if you don't follow Ekadasi, then even if you're elevated to a Vaikuntha planet, you'll fall down. And you become the killer of your spiritual master, etc., etc. So, therefore, we follow Ekadasi. And if you're elevated to Jagannath planet, and they ask you, did you follow Ekadasi? And you say no, and then they send you back here to live in Jagannath Puri, where you don't have to follow Ekadasi. Anyhow, they do a lot of things in Jagannath Puri, which I don't think we're supposed to do either. Anything else? Hvala Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Pimanan.